If you're watching this, you made it through 2018. Congratulations. But now that it's 2019, that means we have a whole new year of board game releases. A lot of cool stuff to go through, so we decided we'd sort of go through and look and see what games will be coming out this year and sort of talk about them.
We are 100% going to talk about them for real. Not every game that's coming out in 2019, but a good highlight of them that hopefully are things you can look forward to and hopefully get to play if they all actually come out this year, because sometimes they don't.
Yeah, and also this order isn't like a top 10 list. We're pretty much just going by alphabetical of company, because that's a little bit easier on us, and then no one thinks like, why is this better when we haven't played them yet?
That's right. We haven't played most of these games yet, although some of them we have.
That's true. But we're going to start off now, and we're going to look at AEG first, because once again, alphabetically. Of course, there's expansions for already popular games, such as Smash Up. There's the International World Tour, which we talked about from last Gen Con. Very excited to see how those shape up. There's also the expansions for the Thunderstone from the second Thunderstone Kickstarter.
Thunderstone Quest.
Yeah, Thunderstone Quest, sorry. Technically, Thunderstone's the old version.
It is.
Which is really cool, because that sort of does a flip on how the game works. Instead of more going out and attacking, you're more on the defense. But we've also got Edge of Darkness. This is one we did get to play sort of a prototype version of. And this is one of their other game, Mystic Veil.
It was supposed to be like the introduction to the card crafting system, which this game uses heavily, but it's a much deeper, more complex game. Yeah.
And we also got Tiny Towns. This is we just talked about this from PAX Unplugged, which sounds really cool.
Yeah, everyone's building their own town. Kind of a neat little concept that seems cool. Lots of good stuff from AEG. Definitely doing a lot of their older favorites, expansions like they always do, and hopefully Edge of Darkness actually comes out, because again, that was a Kickstarter and is a big game, so you never know with those kinds of things. Next, we've got Europa Universalis, which is one we got a chance to demo. This is based on the computer game from Paradox. The game is being published by Ager Games, and this is a big old territory control war kind of a game where you're going across Europe and I think the world, basically, changing your politics up a little bit and battling for control of the world. So one of those like big heavy games if you like those kinds of insane area control games.
If you're a little bit more curious, we did talk about it a bit more back at Gen Con, so go look up our old videos for that one. And this one was actually in our Kickstarters.
Recently.
Yeah.
Very recently.
Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. This sort of darker story of the King Arthur mythos. But as we said, this is a Kickstarter one that we mentioned before, so I'm not so sure it's going to come out this year, but it said 2019, so we'll see. We'll give them.
Yeah, it's probably not going to, but this is from Awakened Realms, who did Lords of Hellas and This War of Mine, so they've got a really good track record lately, and this one seemed pretty cool. Another one that is going to be on Kickstarter very shortly after this video is released, and we actually did a preview for it, is Sorrow Phoenix Rising, which is a brand new standalone version of the Sorrow game that adds a little bit more rules, a little bit more complex, but not too complex. It's still a light tile-laying game where your phoenix is flying through the air, which is nice. And the
really
stars.
Cool. A very interesting twist on the Suro style to bring some more new mechanics, I think, for both veterans and newcomers alike.
Yeah.
But of course, we can't talk about board game releases without thousands of minis raining upon on us. And of course, one of the best companies for that is CMON. We have the Cthulhu Death May Die coming out. Once again, we'll see. Especially, I would be with that huge mini that we have a photo with.
I have a feeling that's going to be separately shipped from the regular game.
There's a good chance. As well as expansions for their Zombicide series, Zombicide Invaders and Darkside. But, of course, we have the Hate game. I believe, was that also Kickstarter?
That's all their games are Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So
like a couple of them. So that's another big miniatures one. We also have Starcadia Quest coming from them. So if you're into minis, these are probably the ones you want to look to.
There's more. They have a huge amount. There's the new Wacky Races game, Night of the Living Dead. They have a Munchkin project, and there's Project Elite, which is another Kickstarter from not that long ago.
Yeah.
CMON is this is an ambitious lineup to say the least for this year. From Cryptozoic, there's a new expansion for the DC deck building game that also may or may not come out. What's the deal with Rebirth?
Yeah, this has been one, I think we reported on this 2 years ago. So this is one, I think it's been a while, but it seems to be more of just, instead of just deck building, there's like a board with meeple and stuff. So I'm not sure whether it'll be out yet, we'll see.
They got a full year to make good on their word for that one.
But we'll keep an eye out for that. But Daily Magic also have some great new releases. They've got Thieves' Den coming out, and they also have Villagers of Valeria Landmarks. Another cool thing. We've always enjoyed their Valeria series.
Yeah, Villages I think is one of my favorites. The new Landmarks, like a different type of building you can construct. And then Thieves' Den seems cool. I think that was Kickstarter also. I think it was one of my picks, but it was like it's like a drafting game where you can send your cards to other people's locations to try to rob them from people. And with that same kind of fun art style and everything. So that's a fun one. One of the real big ones coming out that was announced that was an interesting surprise is Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated from Direwolf Digital and Renegade Games. This is the Clank deck building game, but set in the world of the Penny Arcade Acquisitions Incorporated podcast, and it's a legacy game.
Yeah.
So there's
Crossover,
a whole
legacy, everything that you'd want.
It's a fascinating one. We'll see how that works.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say that actually comes out close to PAX Unplugged for next year.
That'd be a smart release window.
Yeah.
Since it was announced around that time.
Yeah.
Probably.
And that would give them a lot of time, and I think probably also bring more people to PAX Unplugged, because I think while Gen Con, usually a lot of people release around then, that would give PAX more of its own draw, which would be a big thing.
Makes sense.
But Everything Epic Games, company we love, is releasing their Grindhouse, which is this really cool, more solid, like, I guess it's like you go into a house and you have to try to make money, but it's almost like Saw. Like you're gonna actually have your character and have arms maybe cut off, but if you get kicked out, you don't just die and leave the table. You actually are a ghost and you're still interacting with the table, and it sounded really cool and fun.
Yeah, it's like a spooky theme, and it's somewhat more story based. So it's kind of a simple, lighter card game where you're just getting your limbs chopped off.
Yeah,
one of those fun, simple things for the whole family. We talked about Europa Universalis already, but another one from Paradox is Crusader Kings, which the company Freya Legion is publishing, and this is another one that we got to play along with Europa that is based on the video game that was, of the two, the one I think we were more excited about, that has a lot to do with, there's some territory control as well, but it's also got to do with your family members and heirs and creating a line of succession to the throne, and as you play.
You draw tokens like pass or fail, similar to like Arkham, to the Arkham card game, but they're like, you could be like, well, my king is greedy, but he's also like wealthy, and that maybe it's usually bad, but it's good for one particular like skill check, which I think is great. It's very, very thematic.
It was a very interesting system, yeah, definitely.
But from Garfield Games, I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing that.
Garfield Games?
Yeah.
Garfield Games?
Oh, Garfield Games? I Hate Mondays game. No. Paladins of the West Kingdom. This also looks pretty interesting. I think you actually looked a little bit more into
it's a follow-up to Architects of the West Kingdom. We haven't played it, but I think that game did really well.
Yeah.
And this is probably a series that we should try to play in the near future. And it's like, I think it's the same artwork, maybe even the same universe. Don't quote me on that.
I don't think same artwork, because I've seen that guy's artwork at a lot of places.
The Raiders, those of the North Sea, all that series. But it feels like it could fit into that same family to me, but I don't know. One we're both super excited about is from Gale Force 9, their new game based on the Aliens film, Aliens: Another Glorious Day in the Core. Which is going to be a co-op miniatures battler against aliens, Marines versus aliens. So what's not to love?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every time we played a Gale Force game that has a copyright,
we beat that horse every time we mention them, but we like their games.
This one I think is interesting. Dominant Species Marine from GMT Games. Dominant Species was, I think it's probably one of our first big heavy games that we
personally played, and I think in the board game community, it's still very high up on the geek list on Board Game Geek. It's a really popular game. This one's really super interesting because it's just centered around marine life. It uses the same basic mechanics as Dominant Species, if you're familiar, but it does some things to streamline it. For instance, it's a worker placement game, but in this one, when you place your pawns, the action actually takes place immediately instead of waiting until everyone's placed and then going through. And they streamlined some of the scoring mechanisms. Supposedly, they've said a lot of people have preferred this one, the designer said, to the original.
So are you saying they Gulfstreamed it?
Big Gold streamed
Golf
it? Oh,
streamed
Golf streamed it. Yeah, I thought this was like a prospector reference. I didn't understand.
no. Well.
Anyway, Downward Speeches Marine, that should be really cool, especially because there hasn't been like, that game's usually not in print all the time,
Yeah.
so it's, hard
And
to
it's
find.
also not the only marine-related game. on our
No?
list.
What else is marine related?
We'll get to it. We're not at that company yet.
I was curious how you do the segue. All right, what's next?
Well, next is Trogdor from Homestar Runner. For anyone who grew up as the internet was growing in the, I'd say 2000s, I guess would be,
Yeah, I think that's right.
would remember the famous Trogdor cartoon from Homestar Runner, and they made a board game about it. This was, I think, earlier this year.
Kickstarter,
yeah. So this should be coming out, and we'll see if it comes out once again with this Kickstarter always. But I think a lot of people would be excited, almost this sort of not renaissance, nostalgia of the old internet.
It could be a renaissance. Looking over the list of games that are coming out this year to begin with, so many of them are like, yeah, this was our Kickstarter, this is on Kickstarter, this is on Kickstarter. It's like half these games.
But the thing is, I feel, maybe not even just Kickstarter alone, but a lot of times with bargains, it's always funny because I feel like if we hear a video game coming out May 2019, you're usually like, this will be out May 2019.
Not the case with these games. Always take it with a grain of salt. That being said, more games to be excited for coming up. IDW has a couple licensed games that they always like to do. First is Men in Black Ghostbusters crossover, Ecto-Terrestrial Invasion, which has a weird, interesting art style that puts those franchises together. That should be neat. But I think perhaps more exciting for us is Metal Gear Solid game, which is based strictly on that first game, and it is a co-op title where players are playing through different missions through the story of Metal Gear Solid, and supposedly they tout it has like an interesting AI system. We haven't seen exactly how it works yet, but I really am curious. Because,
Yes, we've seen a banner.
Yeah, I think they showed a little more since then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm really hoping this is good. Metal Gear is definitely a big property I really like, and I hope his introduction to the board game world is given justice.
Yeah, well, not introduction. There's, of course, Metal Gear Risk.
Oh, that's true. I forgot. I played that.
So that's a classic.
But moving on, Yellow's got a new addition to their 8-bit box games. This is Double Rumble. If you don't know, 8-bit box idea is it's supposed to be like a video game console.
Yeah, Double Rumble is going to be like their take on the beat-em-up genre, and I'm curious to see how it turns out because it is their first expansion to that line outside of the base. From Indie Boards and Cards, we got a new one, Aeon's End Legacy, the legacy version of Aeon's End.
Yep, we're not done with the legacy trend.
Oh no, we're not. It's going strong in 2019, and this is one where you're all playing as different mages, and as the game progresses, you're going to be getting more powerful, and new rules will be added like most legacy games. Aeon's End, not one that we've played, but I think it has a pretty big following. I've heard
No,
good
it is,
things.
and I will admit right now, one of the main reasons I haven't picked it up is because they had a lot of Kickstarter exclusives. So I'm
Rubbed
just
you
like,
the wrong way.
Yeah,
Plus, it's a legacy game, and when are we going to play it?
Well, no, even before they announced legacy, I mean the original.
The original.
So I was just like, it's one of those. But once again, going to Kickstarter, we've got Mezzo from Colossal Games, and I did pick this up for, I guess it's technically a Kickstarter exclusive, but it's not a promos and cards. It was actually, instead of all the minis, I got little wooden pieces for the sort of cheaper, which is great because I'm like, I'm terrible. I can't even paint, so why pay more to just remind myself of that?
What's Mezzo about?
It's like Aztec. He plays the gods, and you'll be controlling warriors. This territory control game looked really cool, and I mean, if the minis looked amazing. Don't get me wrong there. It's just, like I said, they're just leaving them gray there. You just sort of stare and just like, why are you so bad at art? But that's definitely a cool game to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. Mezzo. Next up, we got Vast. The Mysterious Manor from Leader Games, the sequel, I guess, to the old Vast, which is another asymmetrical game from them in addition to Root, which we made our #1 game of last year. We haven't played either of the Vast games, this one or the first one, but I've heard great things about them. Similar sort of different designers, I believe, from Root, but similar kind of design philosophy with that asymmetrical. And this one takes place in like a haunted house where one player's a creepy spider, one player's like a hero trying to vanquish the monsters. So it sounds like a really neat kind of interplay going on there.
But from Level 99 Games, we've got Imperial Spells and Steam. I mispronounced that terribly.
You're close enough.
We actually
It's
did.
spells.
Yeah, silly me. But we actually did this digital review, I guess you could say.
We got to play a preview on Tabletop Simulator with Brad Talden from Level 99. So that was pretty cool, and we really liked it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, if you played a lot of the train games, this is a good addition because you actually have to think a lot differently. It's not as simple like, oh, make the path. There's a lot more like shuffling and weird things because the trains are magical, so they can teleport.
Yeah, you're like building your trains in
things.
different parts of the map. You can choose different powers to get. Really neat, more complicated kind of game.
And if you're a fan of Level 99, this is still under their, I forget what their...
The Indians universe.
So if you like that, the perfect addition to the collection there.
Really cool. Scaling it back a little bit, Lookout Games is a new version of Patchwork called Patchwork Doodle. And this is a roll and write game. So the original Patchwork is 2 players and you are trying to build a quilt from these kind of Tetris pieces that you're trying to fit onto your board and buying the best ones and getting buttons and such along the way.
You may remember from Jonathan's Halloween outfit.
That's right, you may remember. This is a similar concept, but instead of a board with pieces, you actually have a piece of paper and you're marking it that way with your quilt pieces. So an interesting concept, and I hope it turns out well, because Patchwork seems to be like their biggest franchise that they have left right now, and they're trying to run with it. So it's cool.
Yes, and probably maybe the one of, if not the biggest minis game to hit for this year would be Batman. Batman. I wish there was a Batman.
Next year.
Batman Gotham City Chronicles. This was this huge Kickstarter where you had a whole set of just the hero minis and one of just the villain minis. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, ridiculous sized game.
Yeah, Monolith just is like, all the minis.
yeah, and they have another one too, Claustrophobia 1643, which is like an asymmetrical mini battle game.
That one was actually really interesting because that was the Kickstarter where I think they had everything already done. It was more of just a pre-order system. I know that was some people were very questioning how that works and stuff and using Kickstarter, but Kickstarter didn't seem to care.
Hey, and so neither do we.
But we actually have Vampire of the Masquerade Heritage. This is actually their first foray into the board game from Nice Games Publishing. They've done an RPG before. You've done the video game RPG of them.
Right.
So this is definitely very curious to keep out. I think the series is very well received. I think it has a strong following.
Yeah, I remember we talked about it a little bit when they announced it. I think it has some kind of a system where your vampires do actually, I don't know if it's a full-on legacy game, but there's like a campaign where you actually have descendants or your vampire's really old and they carry on. Some cool ideas going on there. One of our biggest, probably hyped releases for the year is Oceans from North Star Games, a new version of Evolution. I think it's probably subtitled Oceans and Evolution Game, something like that.
Probably.
And if you're not familiar with Evolution, it's a game where you have different creatures and you're trying to feed them and be the top of the food chain versus everyone else. This one focuses on the sea creatures.
Yes.
What you were alluding to earlier, perhaps.
It was. And we got to see this last PAX Unplugged. And the Evolution games just have amazing artwork. The game themselves are fun because it's all about like having your creatures evolve, and you get these really weird creatures like frills, but a fur coat and stuff, and just I can't wait to see what the Ocean one brings because it had some really weird, interesting stuff.
We also have a long interview with the designer in our Roll for Crit Spotlight series on our channel, so search for that. That's if you want to hear more in-depth info on that one.
Pandasaurus Games, even though I personally think they did great this year with their releases, is not slowing down. They've got Machikoro Legacy. This is going to be the legacy version of Machikoro, which was a popular sort of, dice rolling.
Card flipping.
Yeah, not like card. It was not really.
Sometimes you flip them.
It was rolling. It was like a Catan, where it
was like Dominion meets Catan.
Yeah, exactly. That's. So I'm really curious to see how the legacy thing works out with that. We also got Dead Man's Cabal, which we talked about, and sort of like I guess you're all necromancers and pretty much. You're sad necromancer who's like, I'm gonna make my friends.
Yeah, which I wish I could do in real life. No, Pandasaurus has been nailing it in the last year or two, so it's definitely exciting to hear what they do. Another company that usually nails it more or less, I think, is Plaid Hat Games. They've got their new one, Comanauts, which is from designer Jerry Hawthorne, and it's in the same system as Stuffed Fables, which he designed, and this is also a guy who did Mice and Mystics. It's another sort of more fun, story-focused game where everyone is, to me, in the vein of the video game Psychonauts, exploring the consciousness of other people.
I really hope they don't go into mine.
Yeah, that would be scary, but...
Oh no, it's just boring. It'd just be like white walls.
If you like any of those kinds of games, that's probably a cool one to pick up for sure.
Now, I think this is one, Jonathan, you've been so excited for.
Which was, I'm just going to say that it was announced for last year and didn't come out.
Yeah, so I feel like each time we're saying that at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Portal Games in particular, Robinson Crusoe, Mystery Tales. I think we've heard 3 different titles for this.
They've gone through a bunch of things for it, yeah.
But like the new Robinson Crusoe, you've really enjoyed. You even rebought it again.
The second edition, yeah, because that's one of my favorite, both our favorite games, really.
Yeah, no, and that's the whole survival thing. I think that we brought that up with Seventh Continent last year. Mm-hmm. And the Mystery Tales adds much more of like, I think they said like Lovecraftian, but I'm sure it's going to be all these weird kind of horror and story. I'm really excited to see what they do there because there is some really cool stuff you could do. Mm-hmm. But of course, they've got some other stuff. They have Stronghold Undead, as well as, and I guess this is another really big one for us, Detective LA Crimes. If you don't know, the Detective game came out this year and was on our top 10 lists, the original one. And this one is more of an 80s during the LA, which sounds really interesting. And also probably helps it. And I'm curious to see how they do, because the original one was all about using a computer. And I don't know how well the infrastructure was up back then.
I hope they make it like an interface of like an Apple II or something.
Oh god, it actually beeps, you have to wait.
Yeah, but so a bunch of cool expansions from Portal. I'm sure they're going to announce some more original stuff too, but excited for that. I think they actually have like a conference like in January where they might announce some more things. From Red Raven Games, there's the second edition of The Ancient World, which is designed by Ryan Laukat, who did Near and Far and Above and Below. Another one we have not gotten to play the first edition, but this new one, it's like sort of a city building game, and there's also these giant titans, and in this one they have more of an interactive element where they're actually going to be fighting you and you can try to fight back against them. So cool pedigree behind this one, so I'm looking forward to trying that one out.
And if you're a long-time fan of the show, you'll know that I am a fan of the Power Rangers series. So I'm very excited with Renegade Games' new Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid that should hopefully be coming out this year. This will come with the original team of Power Rangers with sort of a working together and playing different combo cards, which I think could be really cool. And the extras I'm really excited about because they actually pulled from the sort of the RPG heroes that were made.
Right.
And I really hope though that they actually...
Deep lore.
Yeah. Well, I hope they actually, if this does well, they'll actually maybe make that rule set, whatever they use for the RPG official, to actually make it so people could do a Rangers RPG. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah. Well, they have been doing the RPG stuff, Renegade.
That's true. They have been doing.
Maybe they'll dip their toes and mix those two worlds. There's a brand new expansion for the Seventh Continent coming out, which was our game of the year last year, or I should say 2 years ago now. It's just called "What Goes Up Must Come Down" from Serious Pulp, and I'm pretty sure you're probably a backer of this expansion.
Of course I am. Partly because I'm not gonna lie, they had sleeves, and I don't remember if you recall playing when you did the solo. I'm like, oh, yeah, this needs to be sleeved.
Yeah, you do a lot of shuffling. So, what does this one add?
Well, this up and down. So you either can go up in an air balloon for one of the stories, as well as you go on like a water raft in through caves and stuff underground. So this is just even more crazy stuff you can explore. Really excited.
I love it.
Now this one I did not. At least I forgot if we talked about it. Square Enix is making a Tomb Raider Legends board game, and I'm like, what's with all these video games now? Like we got Horizon, Assassin's Creed. What was the other one?
Metal Gear Solid. We just talked about.
Metal Gear Solid. All the games. Are we going to get a God of War soon?
We're going to get everything, whatever they can milk and sell to us again. This is an interesting one because there's like no info about it.
Yeah.
We really don't know what this game is going to be, but Tomb Raider's a cool series. The new games have been pretty fun, so...
You've played them, I don't...
Yeah,
right?
I played the first of the new ones so far, which now is like 6 years old or something. Right. But it feels new to me. But yeah, so that's cool. I'm excited to see what they do with that. Starling Games has a couple fun ones. Of course, there's an expansion for Everdell called Pearlbrook, which actually adds a new riverboard and a new resource called Pearls with some new cards that go along with them. So basically another set of stuff you can build and do. They also have a game called Anomaly, which is a hidden movement game where every player is hidden behind a board, but it's a team of one versus all. So the humans, I think it is, are trying to tell each other where they are while not letting the monster know.
Yeah, the anomaly.
Yeah.
And the station is sort of going out of control and the nuclear reactor will throw radiation in certain places too. It sounds really interesting, and also I think if I recall, both sides have card abilities, but they have like half the card is for the humans, the other half's for the anomaly. So if you use it, you give them to the anomaly, so you know what you're giving them. You know, like I'm giving him a bomb or something.
Right.
So it's a very interesting mind game. It's not
yeah.
simply just like in the old Mansion Madness. Like I don't know if you remember, by doing stuff you gave the mastermind. I don't remember what they called it, energy, but you don't know 100% what he cast. With it, this you could be guaranteed. So I think that is for a lot more dynamic gameplay between the two teams. And both sides being hit and roll sounds hilarious.
Yeah, no, I really like that aspect. Sounds kind of like Escape from Aliens in outer space.
Yeah. Stonemaier announced, we actually talked about this on the news, Wingspan. And since I think we talked about it, they've released a lot more. And even I think a How to Play is out now. This is going to be, Stonemaier was once again one of our games.
Games of the year, yeah.
And so I'm really excited
Your birds.
Yeah, once again, animals. I like these games with animals. Dominant species, evolution.
You're dealing with wingspans
and eating
food.
other birds with falcons.
Yeah, pretty good. Some fish. Are there pelicans in it?
There might be.
I hope so. Thunderworks Games is working on their Role Player series, which is a dice building engine kind of a game based on Dungeons and Dragons, but not named Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Generic fantasy role-playing games. And they have 2 new entries in it. One is Fiends and Familiars, which is another expansion for that, which kind of adds more cards, and I think like also animals that can accompany you as you play Familiars. But the other one is Role Player Adventures, which is an actual role-playing game where now you can officially take the characters you created in Role Player, because that's sort of what the game is. It's like a character creation process, and now use them in a real RPG.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. I remember when you first got Role Player, it was like, it sounds cool, but after playing, I'm like, I really like this game.
Yeah, it's a really satisfying
and the idea of making the character this way, I think, making a character with a dice engine system, I think could be a lot of fun for people. Especially if they're new to the RPGs, because it's not just, okay, I don't know what stats are good. You're playing a game, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is what I have to work with.
Last time we played, I literally took a picture of my final character because I was like, I want to use this in an RPG one day. and now I will.
But, of course, Upper Deck has more Legendary products release. As of now, because I'm sure we'll hear more, we've got Legendary Venom. This is probably due in part with the Venom movie coming out, so everyone's back on the symbiote train again.
Yeah, we don't know much about this one. Like very little. They've shown some artwork, but I think we can assume there will be at least one Venom. Maybe, I think people were guessing maybe Carnage, or probably other like versions of heroes that have had the symbiote on them.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, we do know the villain. One of the masterminds.
Oh, right. It's Poison Thanos? Wasn't that?
Because there's a whole story arc with Venom and X-Men, and like Poison are an alien species. They're sort of like they can only feed on something once a Venom symbiote is attached to it. Something like that. It's really weird.
Weird stuff. This is for the Legendary Marvel deck building game.
Yes,
because
they're really pulling from all over the universe for that, because they're not done until they have every version of every character.
I need 20 Venoms in my deck to play 3 games back to back with different Venoms.
I am curious, do you know if it's designed to play more with the Heroes version or
Supposedly, the official stance from Upper Deck at this point is that they're not really using villains terminology anymore.
So binding.
If there's a villain in it, it's just a villain. It's just a hero now. Like they're just kind of going with that, I think.
It's really the bindings. That's the thing.
That's really like that kind of stuff, and the Madam Hydras they're moving away from the villain set.
That's a shame. I did like the binding idea. I think that was the best thing from the whole. But
I think it was just it was too much to keep up with.
No, I think that's fair. But moving on.
Well, let's move on. We got more. We love Legendary. This is real exciting. Van Ryder Games, a company I really like. They're putting out another game that was on our preview for last year that got pushed, didn't quite make it, should be coming out in a couple months. Detective City of Angels, another detective game. This one does take place, I think in the 40s, but like in the LA, so it's more of that classic LA Confidential noir thing. And it's a story game where one player is kind of the mastermind and everyone else is trying to solve the mystery by asking questions and finding suspects on a map.
But the way it sounded less mastermind-like when you think of, I think, Descent, but more...
You're not versing them.
More GMing, I think.
Yeah, a little bit more like that. Very excited for that one. And then there's also the Crusoe Crew, which is another one of their graphic novel games that's cooperative, so multiple players actually are looking through comics, and you read them at the same time, and you can decide decide which panels to go through together, and you might see different things in different books. Very creative concept.
Yeah, I think that was one of your picks.
Was one of my picks.
And that was really cool, especially with the map and stuff. And the idea going back, because I've done one of their books.
The solo ones.
But the idea of actually going like, not literally, it's not in my picture. So it'd be interesting that you can't just scan her like, okay, you just tell me if you need to look. Because then you're like, no, wait, I'm the one who speaks to animals, so.
Right.
I might see a squirrel. And of course, WizKids has the Quarriors, well, this is going to be fun to say, Ultimate Quedition. Quarriors, if you don't know, is actually where the Dice Masters, in essence, is based off of. It's pretty much Dice Masters before Dice Masters.
Non-collectible.
Yeah. This was back when they still did boxes and didn't realize that they could make more money through random packs.
Right. And now it's even less collectible because this version has every expansion in it, which is quite a few. There's at least 3 or 4 for the
I want to say
original.
4.
Yeah, so that's cool that they're bringing that all together and paying some homage to the Quarrior series. So that's the last item on our list. There are plenty more, I'm sure, that we didn't say, but is there anything jumping out to you that you're most excited for?
Most excited for
2019, yeah.
Well, definitely I think the 2 detective games in LA.
I know, definitely. It's like it's so boring listening to us.
But like the evolution in Dumb Species 2, because it's been a while since we played it. But I want to say we didn't see a lot. We mentioned it once, but I actually think we are going to start seeing more of a trend of the roll and write or write and play games. Like I think welcome to that kind of idea, and well, I guess it sort of is too, the AEG one.
Tiny Towns.
Tiny Towns, thank you. The idea of like, because what you could do with that, which Tiny Toons actually doing, and I'm sure once they do it, people like a board game store could actually run a little gameplay session, and people can, if they walk in late, they can be like, here's your sheet, just here you go.
You love accommodating people who are late.
Well, I'm just thinking like it does
You're thinking about that.
The late, as many people as you want, so you're not like, oh, we already have 4 people, because that's one of the times when you go and you're like, unless it's a huge magic tournament, which tend to could fit as many as you have room for.
I think
it just allows for that. I think for a lot of people, both game companies and store owners, that's going to be a big thing.
They're also good because they're usually pretty accessible, so new players can play them. And I'm guessing for the companies that make them, they're cheaper to produce because it's mostly just pencils and paper usually. So I think they're good for everybody.
Yeah. So most of them are Kickstarter too. There's that Dinosaur Park one I talked about.
There's On Tour.
So I think that's something to keep an eye out for. And a small thing also, deal with that. Even if you lose, you get to make something, which, for me, I always love in games like that because you don't feel like you just were dead.
Or you can just try to beat your own personal scores too.
That too. Yeah, I think that's what I'm keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, we're definitely still seeing the legacy train moving along, although it's not overwhelming, I don't think. They're peppered in. There's enough because I think they're really hard to make, so that's a hard train to jump on.
Well, it's not just really hard to make because it's also, if you know someone's already playing a legacy game, it's like, it's hard.
Yeah. Well, I think the publishers I don't know how they feel about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
I'm definitely also the Aliens game, of course. I'm super excited for. I mean, there were a lot on the list, and I'm sure there's going to be surprises because a lot of these companies who just had 1 or 2 games, I'm sure they're going to wait and announce them within the next few months. So there's still like plenty of good stuff to come in the future. Let us know in the comments which games you're looking forward to most, what we inevitably didn't mention on this list, what you're excited for, or any trends you think you're predicting, or if you're looking forward to more roll and writes or any other kinds of games. I would love to see more stuff like in the detective style or even in the graphic novel style that really dives into more of that story base, because that's what we also love in games.
I mean, I'm always a big fan of the story. I like the roll and write system because I do like writing on the sheet and stuff, and you got to
combine the two. Seems like a no-brainer.
Ooh, a story roll and write.
Yeah.
Get on it, Portal.
And a legacy game, and who knows what else you can throw in there. So it's going to be an exciting year. If you're watching this, we took a little bit of a break. Next week we're back to normal with our news and Kickstarter videos, and we're going to be pumping out a lot more cool content this year. So we're super excited to continue to entertain you and bring you your board game news in 2019.
So stay tuned for some other really cool announcements. But until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan, and this was Roll for Crit.
Don't forget to click that like button and, of course, subscribe for even more excellent videos.
I subscribed and now I'm rich.